All right, Algebra 1B students, welcome to part 2 of lesson 12.3 on mean, median, and mode. In this video, we are going to focus in on mean, and we're going to try to find a missing data point or an extra data point that would give us a certain average that we're hoping for. Okay, so we want a certain average, so we'll set up an equation in order to find a fourth or in this case fourth, or in general a missing data point that will allow us to get that average. So if we look at this particular example here, we are talking about grades on 3 tests that we have taken in a certain class. Our grades out of 100 so far are 80, 93, and 91. All very good grades. Obviously we are a very capable student. And we're asking here, what grade would we need on the next exam to have an average of 90 on the 4 tests? Okay, so we want our average to come out to 90, and if we remember our last video, we find the mean or the average by adding up the 4 test scores and then dividing by 4 because there are 4 test scores. So I've set up this equation here where I have my 3 test scores that I already know, 80, 93, and 91, added to a missing test score, an X value test score that I don't know yet, and then divide all that by 4, and I want my average, my answer, when I do that, adding up and dividing by 4 to equal 90. So I want to solve this for X and figure out exactly what I need on this next test in order to have my average be 90. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this 4 down here. I want to undo the dividing so that I know what my 4 test scores actually need to add up to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 4, which will cancel out these 4's, and then I'll times the 90 as well by 4. So I end up with this equation here. My 4 test scores added together need to equal 360, so that when I divide by 4, I get my average of 90 like I would like, okay, like I want. Now that I have the fraction kind of taken care of here, I'm going to now combine these like terms, my 80, my 93, and my 91. Certainly something you can do before you multiply by 4 as well. I just chose to multiply by 4 first. And now I'll add these 3 numbers up so that I know sort of my total test score so far. So 80 plus 93 plus 91 gives me 264. Plus this missing test score needs to add up all to 360. So if I'm going to have all 4 scores add up to 360, I need to find my missing score by subtracting 264 from both sides to get X all by itself. So I'll minus 264 from both sides, and I end up finding that X needs to equal 96. So on my last exam, or on my 4th exam, I need a 96 out of 100 if I want my average to be a 90. Okay, so we've now used an average that we desire or that we want to find a 4th data point or our next data point. Okay, I've got a couple here for you to try as well. I'd like you to try just figuring out what grade we would need if our average just needs to be an 88. So I've set up the same equation again where I'm adding up my 4 scores, dividing by 4, and I now want it to equal 88. And then I also want you to look at part B, which says if 100 is the highest possible score, meaning no extra credit or anything like that, is it possible to raise our average to a 92? So you should try to figure out what score you would need to raise your average to a 92, and then see if that score, that X value, actually makes any sense in this particular situation. Okay, so pause the video, take a look there at those 2 problems where you're finding the average score, or sorry, finding the next score in part A till you have an average of 88, and deciding if it is possible to get a score that could raise our average to 92 in part B. So pause the video, take a look here, and then come on back and I'll show you what we should get. All right, in part A, if we do the same process, times by 4 and times by 4, and then subtract all these 3 scores, we find that X here actually also needs to equal 88. Funny enough, we already have an average of 88, so X needs to be 88 to keep that average. And then in part B, we're setting up basically the same equation, but now we want to know if our score can even get to being a 92. So once again, we'll follow the same process and multiply both sides by 4, which gives us 368, and then take away all three of those other scores, 80, 93, and 91, and we end up with x needs to equal 104, which unfortunately is not possible in this case because they said our max score was 100, no extra credit, so it is not possible to have an average of 104 after we take this fourth test. If you have questions about finding a data point using a mean that we desire, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all I have for you tonight. Have a wonderful night.